games? What even is this world like? Before I could really start making guesses, I was suddenly in control of Gerald. Yes, I thought it was Gerald at first. And when I say I'm confused, I mean it. One of the first things I did was mess around with some menu options, and I came across the glossary. There were 3 people listed there, and I was wholeheartedly convinced that these characters would be playable. Knowing that I would eventually get some answers and naturally grow more familiar with how the game operates, I went downstairs to meet Vesemir. As small as it may seem to those of you who are avid role-playing gamers, picking between dialogue options is completely new to me. What I mean by that is the free-ish will to craft your own tone for the story, possibly even change outcomes. Having just welcomed my now 4-month-old daughter to the world this summer, I opted for the protective fatherly route for the first option. I'm glad I chose this, because even though this girl's young, she could probably kick Geralt's ass by the looks of things. An underrated concept, but a welcomed one, is when video games offer tutorial options and they seamlessly work them into the game. I absolutely hate dedicated tutorial worlds or scenarios, and I skip them purposely even if I desperately need them. Luckily for me, The Witcher 3 presents it in a way that makes it pretty hard to pass on. While working out how to physically attack and maneuver, I have my first complaint about the game. Movement in The Witcher 3 feels slow. It's a bit heavy, and it's almost like there's a hint of input lag. Smoothness is not a word I would use to describe the combat, at least. But the one thing I learned from Skyrim is you get used to those sort of things, and in the end, it is hardly a determining factor in the RPG's overall experience. So I'm not going to worry too much about it right now. Just as I was starting to forget that everything I've done so far in these first few minutes is a dream, the main antagonist revealed themselves. I assume this is the main antagonist. You got a big, scary boat, menacing dark armor, and exceptional timing. Cirilla was frozen in ice, and just before she was struck, Geralt tilted away under a tree in the moonlit night. It's official. Witcher 3 playthrough has begun.
Get ready for road to your widow. Not yet.
Guys, I'm just trying to grasp what the hell is going on. I've been bombarded with so many different systems, different characters, dreams, monsters, controls. All of it is new to me. What would traditionally be a hindrance to my enjoyment, this information overload was eased by some careful planning by the game developers. I found the bestiary, which gives descriptions of all the monsters we're going to encounter, and there were these pop-up hints, which were super helpful and descriptive, but what proved to be the most enlightening was something a bit unexpected: the extra dialogue options available during conversations. While at the White Orchard Inn, the innkeeper tried her best to help locate Yennefer, but she ultimately had no leads. The game suggested ending the dialogue now. It even had a pop-up saying you can do that. With the optional dialogue, she mentioned how the nation is on the move, describing the ongoing war, helping paint a picture of how desperate of times the Witcher population finds itself in. If I want to truly soak in this game and experience it to the maximum, this will certainly be one of the ways to do that. Knowing what I know now, I'm glad I spent a considerable amount of time in White Orchard trying my best to learn all that I can in this pseudo-tutorial section of the game. First, I took on a contract to kill a ghost, which gave us an opportunity to apply the Witcher section. As someone who grew up in Maine, one of my favorite things was to follow deer tracks in the snow-covered woods as a kid, hoping I'd find a pack of them. Maybe it's just a guide thing, but having the ability to track and follow clues has always been a super desire. I also really appreciated how thorough the inspection of the Griffin's corpse was. In fact, I was blown away at the dialogue so far. Not only is it extensive, it's engaging, and the voice acting is exceptional. Listening to Geralt break down every tiny detail of the Griffin's dismembered body really solidified my trust for the game. It doesn't matter what I interact with or how insufficient it may be in the story, everyone and everything I encounter is worth investigating.
His lower back is compressed, not for the fight. This is a
Wait, strange description of Griffin sitting in a chair without ridiculous. And yet, here we are, at the sponsored portion of the video. This is Flexispot, and their chair, the C7 Max. Flexispot tested this chair with drowners and rock trolls, making sure it's comfortable for all body types. The headrest can be tilted to the ideal angle and help keep your head comfy. The entire backrest height can be adjusted, meaning you can find the right spine support. The lumbar section here at the bottom automatically adjusts, so you get even more spine support by the sacrum. Something often ignored is seat depth, but the C7 Max even allows for that. The cushion itself is super soft, and my favorite thing is how adjustable the armrests are. You can raise the height level and rotate them 360 degrees, so you can find the perfect position for gaming or for work. And when you thought it couldn't do more, it also reclines. And yes, you're seeing that right, it has a footrest that you can tuck underneath when you're not using it. Flex Spot is participating with Black Friday, so you can use code C730 to get $30 off. You can feel secure with a 30-day return policy and a 10-year warranty, so click the link in the description to give your butt something nice this Black Friday. Now, back to The Witcher. Ooh, a Place of Power. I know some of you thought that I would miss this, didn't you? With now an unspent ability point, I was introduced to yet another new system, the talent trees. Instead of seeing how things go and maybe taking my time, I chose to go straight into the green tree for this playthrough. I don't know what's overpowered. I guess it's a combo, but I wanted to go with something less vanilla, so we're gonna connect my bomb from strong. I don't think I've used any of those yet. Again, I'm playing completely blind, so if I accidentally just chose the most overpowered talents like I did in Skyrim with the Snoop build, just consider me a gaming genius, I guess. In literature, there's a method of storytelling called in medias res, which means to be dropped into the middle of things, beginning the story in the midst of chaos. Being as this is the third Witcher, I figured this would be the case. I'll admit that I prefer more linear storytelling, where the timeline starts from the beginning and the story develops step by step. I find in the former scenario, I start asking way too many questions, ultimately sabotaging the natural unfolding of the story. For example, after a dangerous brawl in White Oak Inn, Geralt and Vesemir step out and are confronted by some Nilfgaardians who are accompanied by none other than Yennefer. Having just witnessed an innocent farmer receive 15 lashes for delivering rotten goods to the Nilfgaards, they are clearly a brutal empire who are not righteous in their war plans. If Yennefer is an ally, why is she with them? Also, why the hell was it so easy to find Yennefer? The first cutscene had Geralt chasing after her, and the beginning part of the game was all about following her tracks. I was expecting to have to use my Witcher senses or cut down a few men and maybe find her in deep trouble. I know I've missed the entirety of the story so far up until this point, but all of this to say, I'm a little awkward seeing having missed 2/3 of the lore. I'd hoped the game would assist new players like me, but it actually did the opposite. Once I reached Vizima, General Voorhees, he started asking questions about past events. I assume this part was to help refresh memories for the previous two games, but it only served to distance me farther from the story, making me feel dumb for not knowing what was going on. There were too many name drops in scenarios I've never experienced. If knowledge of past events is required to understand the story in this game, I might be doomed. As my concern for jumping into an established world without knowing the history increased, my conversation with Emperor Emhyr gave me hope. He mentioned Ciri, the girl from the dream earlier, was alive. She was in danger, being pursued by the Wild Hunt. This is the carrot on the stick I needed to convince me that the story is worth investing in. I still don't even know if the dream was real or not, but the Emperor tasked me with locating her. I don't know much about Ciri, but this sounds like the classic princess who ran away and needs to be rescued, and I can get on board with that. Mario and Peach have been doing it for years. Yennefer and I were able to chat once I was done with Emhyr, where she'd explain more about Ciri's possible whereabouts. Instead of more valuable information about Ciri, the conversation shifted over to their relationship with one another. There was mention of amnesia and a girl named Triss. Apparently I lost my memory and forgot Yennefer existed. It is interesting how much this game has highlighted Geralt's relationship with Yennefer so far. Most relationships in these types of games are secondary storylines that prove no real purpose, but it feels like in The Witcher it's much more important. Oddly, I feel Yennefer is not to be trusted. Maybe she will betray me down the line. Regardless, I finally had something in the story that hooked me in. Where is Ciri? With the story set in motion, I glanced at the world map for the first time. Damn, she is thick. The quest list says we need to visit Velen, Novigrad, and Skellige in search of Ciri. I know The Witcher is an open-world game, but I was still shocked at the vastness of it. Just how big is this game? I wasn't overwhelmed, but I was stunned. Like literally, I was unable to decide what to do first. Obviously, there's a main quest to follow, but why rush into anything? Almost poetically, as big as the world of The Witcher 3 is, it also feels small. There are little towns like this one, Blackbow. In Blackbow, you have a few homes, a few people, and a few problems. While I was here, I ran into a guy named Nealon, a hunter who has lost his wife in the woods. I asked the other village people if they knew anything, and they all said she was dead. There's a wild pack of wolves downtown. Accepting my duty as a witcher, I ventured into the forest and found the wolves, defeated them, and thought the quest was about over. Until Margaret. She was the sister of Hannah, Nealon's missing wife. She tried to bribe me to stop my investigation, stating it would only make matters worse if I found out the truth. She offered double the original rate to end my search, and being short on coin, I accepted. No, I'm just kidding. Margaret is obviously hiding something, and I wanted to know what. Well, we quickly find out that Nealon is a werewolf, which I learned from reading a letter in an abandoned shack not too far away. Below the shack is where Nealon hid to wait out full moon. I'm only playing on the second hardest difficulty, but killing this werewolf was not easy. I spent close to an hour here. I died endlessly, but it did function as a sort of combat trial for me, and it helped me improve my timing and dodges. It did make me second guess my bomb build. Then again, I don't even really know how to make a bomb. Eventually, I powered through, but before I took him out, Margaret showed up. Turns out, Margaret is into hairy men and is in love with Nealon. Worse than that, Margaret is responsible for her sister's death, having led her into the woods knowing Nealon in werewolf form would not resist an easy meal. And he didn't really like that, and I had to make the decision to either let Nealon kill Margaret or take the beast out myself. As much as I wanted to let him avenge his wife, I decided against it. I wonder if he would have actually killed her if I let him. This game really gives you freedom to write your own story. Geralt is obviously a ruthless monster killer with no fears, yet he seems more of a humanitarian than his rough, toneless voice would lead you to believe. So far, my Geralt is not driven by money. He's altruistic, and overall seems to be a bit more kind-hearted than his Witcher status may lead others to believe. It is crazy to think that I am already setting the tone of my playthrough on one of the very first quests. This is a good sign for things to come. Maybe I'm leading Geralt to a too soft path, but somehow it feels right to me. A few hours in, and it's clear the Witcher world is very hostile. There's monsters roaming both the seas and skies. War rages through a never-ending conquest of power-hungry rulers, and it's full of death and grief. I think anyone at this point of their playthrough would capture that feeling, and in case you somehow missed it, how about stepping on some entrails and a decapitated lower leg? These sounds did not have to be added into the game, but props to the developers for making things as realistic as possible. But as gruesome and raw as this is, it's actually quite beautiful. Well, you know, not the blood exactly, but other parts are literally pieces of art. After some exploring, I swam up to a fisherman on a small dock, and behind him stood a large city. Now that is art. Not only is this place amazing, but it really does feel and sound like an actual city full of people. I heard the townsmen sawing some wood. I heard the clink of armor and some distasteful words as I passed the city guards. And I heard people holding actual scripted conversations on the side of the street. I don't want to bash Skyrim too much, but so far, this game kind of blows it out of the water, at least in terms of environment and immersion. And it only came out 4 years after Skyrim. I haven't experienced many open-world RPGs, but clearly, this one is on a different level. I spent a good bit of time here, just taking in the sights, and in the upper right corner of my screen, I saw a symbol of a pair of scissors. You know, I gotta put a stamp on my playthrough and change my look. So, everyone, this is how my Geralt will look for the remainder of the video. A soul patch and the Elven Rebel cut gives a slightly dignified look, more focused. It really lets that scar pop. I know the playthrough is just getting started and there's so much to talk about and experience, but I gotta keep it here at Oxenfurt for just a little longer. I promise we'll actually start progressing soon. During the Oxenfurt drunk contract, I learned that a vampire had been attacking citizens late at night, but this vampire would only target drunk people. Geralt thought the best course of action was to get himself sloshed and roam the streets himself to lure the vampire out. Certainly, we could have found some other drunk and we could hide somewhere and wait for the vampire to show up, but no. I forgot to record, so I'm gonna use someone else's footage here, but seeing Geralt stumble around and sing songs really helped add some character depth.
The battle starts in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
It's quests like these that help me fall in love with the game and the characters. I sobered up real quick once I encountered the vampire.
Come out and fight, bitch.
I thought I'd be fighting a guy dressed like Dracula, but instead I had to fight a catacomb. I guess it's just like a higher being of vampires. I might be a bit of a baby, but being forced to take this thing on in a small hut just outside the main part of the city had me legitimately scared. It didn't help that one mistake meant certain death, but I did manage to take him down even being severely underleveled. Did you guys notice what happened? I was so hyped about finding Ciri that I completely forgot about her and did like 10 side quests and 3 contracts. That is totally an open world RPG game. Alright, let's focus up and try to find some clues on where Ciri is. At the time, I didn't know I was heading towards Novigrad, but getting through main city was not as simple as walking straight in. I got stuck at the border post, which was manned by the Redanian army. They guarded the entrance to the territory surrounding Novigrad, and I needed a pass to get through. Luckily, I was given one from a guy whose monster contract I just fulfilled. But before I head into Novigrad, I want to talk about this bridge. While walking this bridge, I felt The Witcher was different from other games. This bridge, although small, helps build an understanding of the world's current state. Though I'm still super lost when it comes to the war and who is who, this bridge painted a clear picture. I passed by children and women, old sickly men and innocent families standing in line, hoping to find refuge past the gate. It may be insignificant, but it was the world building I needed. I felt the desperation and hopelessness of the war. It makes the world feel so much more alive. A lot of games wouldn't go to these lengths, fulfill such an unremarkable location with this much detail. It was another way the game earned credibility. I think I'm starting to see why this game is so highly acclaimed. Yes, this game is massive, but when you zoom in on one section of it, even zooming into a single grid, you'll notice that there's no wasted space. It's a nice lesson for any game developers out there that areas like this are just as important as your main city. As one of the lucky ones who had the pass through the gate, I can see now why so many are in line waiting to get through to Novigrad. Notice how I stopped when entering the city walls, to pause and take in the skyline, to become a part of the shuffling chaos. My hands froze so I could take it all in. I thought Oxenfurt was good. It might be too early to say this, but The Witcher 3 is an amazing game, easily topping Skyrim and Oblivion. I feel I can make this judgment call this early because the game is already set up to succeed. The dialogue, the glossary and bestiary, the side quests, the environment, and the music. I'm in love. And although Skyrim's main quest is nothing in comparison to the many side quests it offers, I feel The Witcher will probably be different. The idea of tracking down a single person, Ciri, keeps the story organized. It's simple in nature, yet I know it'll be so much more complex than that. And even if the main quest disappoints, the side quests and explorable areas of the game are already so fun and engaging, it wouldn't even matter. I am feeling rather dumb for not giving this game a chance early on. I hate that I've been so prejudiced towards role-playing games, but I'm also kind of glad because it means I get to experience this right now during an important part of my life. I said before that I had my first kid a few months back, and so obviously time has been something that has become a bit scarce. I love my daughter and my life, but when it comes to gaming, I haven't been able to play as often. I wouldn't have it any other way, but when I do play, it feels rewarding to play a game that respects my time, giving me entertainment at every step, while granting me the freedom to play at my own pace in my own way. There's no sense of urgency, something other games have pushed on me in the past in some form or another. Life is fast-paced enough. A game like this should help you feel the opposite. Sorry, that was probably a bit of a tangent there, but that's what the first sight of Novigrad can do to a man. At this point, I'm still kind of just wandering around the game without any direction. It's hard to leave Novigrad once you enter it, and I found another quest that will occupy me for a while. I won't go into all the details of it, but essentially I convinced this guy here, Idir, to abandon his current work as a dumpling maker and go back to work as a master blacksmith. The quest involves a bit of negotiating, killing, hiring bodyguards, sabotaging, and more killing. It was fun, but the thing I appreciated the most about it was the writing. As a completely new visitor to Novigrad, the quest helped familiarize myself with the complexities of this place. There's people here who have too much power, and as wonderful as it is for some, it's also contentious and unfriendly. This was the perfect first quest to do in Novigrad, and I'm sure there are better weapons out there, but the steel sword I got as a reward from this quest scales with my level. I'm probably going to use it for a long time. And I'm totally over the sluggishness of combat and retract my complaint from earlier. The movement fits the style of game, and I'm completely used to to it by now. In fact, my bomb build is starting to do some serious damage. A quick side note, shout out to the tutorial page for existing. I've referenced it often in my playthrough, and knowing it's there if I ever get confused on some of the fundamentals of the game feels great. For example, earlier I wasn't sure which monsters needed to be fought with a silver or steel sword, but the tutorial mentioned the opponent's vitality bar, which indicate which sword you should use. The silver health bar needing silver and red being steel. It's funny, I said earlier how I hate tutorials, yet here I am reading one in-game like some kind of nerd. The tutorial is there if you need it, but you aren't forced in and going through it. With my new sword, I felt now was an appropriate time to progress in the main quest. I learned of a few leads from someone who has also been tracking Ciri, and the first stop was to visit the Baron. Before you are allowed into the Baron's territory, you either have to pay an old man or find a secondary way through. Now, my Geralt may not be overly motivated by money, but he's still not about to give it away for free. I searched and searched, and right before I was about to give up and donate some coin to the elderly, I saw some wood attached to a tall brick wall that surrounded the main area. I thought I could climb up that way. And I was right. Kind of. Bet you didn't know you could do this. Well, I probably should not have done this because things started to break. The NPCs didn't really interact with me, and I was afraid I was out of sequence with the game. I was able to examine clues on the ground, and although Geralt totally knew what was up with those clues, he wouldn't tell me. Thinking I just soft-locked myself, I happened across the Baron, which seemed to fix everything. He told us Ciri had been through here, and for the first time, I got to play as her. This was exciting for me because up until this point, I only knew Ciri as a young girl possessing exceptional combat skills. I knew so little, I even thought she was a witcher. That of course is incorrect, but I did learn that Ciri is kind, thoughtful, and a bit like Geralt. A little girl wandering alone in the woods? That takes precedent over any wild thing Ciri might be dealing with, and she asks what the little girl is doing, clearly showing empathy for the child.
My father brought me. Told me to follow the trail of treats and eat my fill. He said he would wait.
While Ciri looks to be close to death, Geralt is busy helping return a goat named Princess to a crazy old man. This is when I found out that Geralt doesn't treat animals quite like he treats people.
Bear! Bear! Run!
The Peller, now reunited with his goat, held a strange ritual which gave us valuable information about the Baron's missing wife and daughter. The Baron requested we find them if we wanted to learn more. I returned to the Baron, who has shown to be a fascinating character, and asked about this unborn child Peller uncovered. The Baron's story was a tragic one. He's a raging drunk, careless husband, and furiously unjust. As flawed as he was, his love for his children was real, and without knowing it, he had caused his unborn child to change into a boxer.
Into fucking what?
This part of the story was insane. The Baron and Geralt headed down to the grave to visit the unborn fairy child. Problem is, the child was missing. I didn't really know what to expect. The bestiary showed a cute silhouette of what a botchling might look like, but instead I was greeted by the most hideous monstrosity. The way the Baron shuffled behind Geralt, disgusted and confused, was pretty close to how I felt at the time. There was an option to kill it on the spot, but I chose to let it live so we could potentially make it a lovekin, or whatever Geralt said earlier. The way the Baron held his child was kind of funny to me, and by the end of our long walk back to the fortress, I had grown to think that the botchling was oddly cute. You can tell it just wants to play, even if that means eating the food. This quest continued on for a while, and I got so caught up in it that I forgot to record it. This is where I just let myself get lost in all of it. I did random side quests, I did some main quests, I explored. I also found out about the all option on the map, which populated it with tons of tiny little question marks. My eyes lit up. Seeing all of the tiny landmarks and mini events you can do while roaming the map made it clear that this game is truly massive. You can spend a long time here trying to unlock all of it. The hours passed by. I think I accidentally stayed up until 3 a.m. one night, and now that I'm a 30-year-old dad, I thought those days were long gone. I keep comparing The Witcher to Skyrim, mostly because I have so little RPG experience, but one thing I like better in The Witcher is the variety of enemies. Each monster in The Witcher is unique, moving at different speeds, attacking in different styles, and requiring different weaponry and blade oils. I still can't express in words how vast the game feels, and for someone oblivious to the series, it feels as if it is endless. The game remains fresh at all points. I do have one complaint. During the quest where you travel with Kira into some cave, I got a bit lost on what was going on. There's some sort of mage who wanted to meet with Kira, but also knew of Ciri's whereabouts. Honestly, I'm just too puzzled to even explain what was going on. This was all necessary to progress the story and continue the Baron part of the quest line, so this is the first time I went on autopilot. It sucks because I know it was significant and I'm sure I missed something, but it's done now and I get to head back to Crookback Bog in search of the Baron's wife. As I headed towards the bog, the quest suggested reading a book called The Ladies of the Wood. Oh my god, that little girl that Ciri had seen in the woods, she was there because her parents sent her to look for the Trail of Treats. It turns out you can send a child down this trail to what I assume is their death, and as a sacrifice, the parents will have their wish granted by these so-called Ladies of the Woods. In desperate times like the Witcher world is in right now, the people who occupy it are forced to become raw in their desires, their emotions, and their actions. There's no hiding behind a facade when life and death is at stake. So if that's the case, you can introduce side characters by the use of the show don't tell philosophy. The guys at CD Projekt Red clearly know this and use it to their advantage, at least from what I've seen so far. When we meet Vesemir, he's sleeping in a chair with books laid out in front of him. Instantly, you recognize Vesemir is unbothered by the chaotic world, probably quite wise, and literally does things by the book. When we meet Kira, she's inside some sort of realm, surrounded by bunnies and bathing in a small tower. She's whimsical, free-spirited, and there's clearly some sort of sexual tension between her and Geralt. And now, back in Crookback Bog, we meet Johnny, who is a shy but serious little creature. We learn he's a godling, and you feel at ease knowing he won't harm you. And once you find out he might have some info about Ciri, you're equally interested in finding out why he lost his voice. I have been introduced to so many different characters in my short time on this game, yet I feel all of them have their own personality and importance to the story. Then, of course, there's the monsters. The monsters have no true restrictions on what they can look like, because, well, they're monsters. It's like the perfect recipe for a rich fantasy world. But of all the monsters I've encountered so far, the Ladies of the Woods take the cake for the most hideous of them all. As if their grotesque, mangled figures weren't awful enough, they are grossly over-sexual. I gagged when one of the witches stroked the legs she had sticking out of her dismembered limbs pouch while teasing Geralt. Ugh. That made me even more sad to find out that Anna was bound to these witches, performing as their slave, which only happened because she was driven mad by the Baron's actions. As if coping with the Witcher world wasn't hard enough, some have to endure far worse than a simple war. Geralt's tough love and willingness to call the Baron out on his mistakes helped facilitate a beautiful since the first time we met the Baron. He had finally come to the realization that he alone caused his and his family's suffering. Overall, the story of the Baron and his family is tragic, but it made the Baron's words sit heavy as he wished Geralt luck on finding Ciri.
Farewell. I hope you find your daughter. And prove a good father to her.
With now a bigger chunk of the quest to find Ciri solved, the main story became that much more alluring. We know now she was not in Velen, and next up was to check Novigrad. I think I played 8 hours straight, but before I logged off, I got to watch my first sunset in Novigrad. The orange-red evening sky poured through the cobblestone buildings while the city buzzed from the nightfall making their way into the streets. It was literally the golden hour of my playthrough. What will I encounter next? I felt a great sense of wonderment. What will come next, however, will become the greatest chain of quests and gaming experience I've ever had.
Their team's capture progress has passed the halfway point.
I'm sure this isn't the first time most people meet Triss, but for me it was. Triss is hiding in a place called the Putrid Grove, a type of sanctuary for all the weirdos of Novigrad. Triss, being a sorceress, qualifies as a weirdo. Novigrad is supposed to be a free city, but the current status could not be further from that. One thing that has bothered me in my playthrough is how the main story quests work. It started with the Baron, where in order to elicit information about Ciri, you have to first help him with a task. There always seems to be something less important to do first. It could be annoying to have to do 3 steps just to take 1 step forward in finding Ciri. It bothered me for a little while, but now I welcome it. It's the Witcher 3's way of keeping you in a certain area for a while, letting the story kind of simmer for a bit. It could have totally backfired if the stories or characters weren't interesting, but luckily that's not the case. I think of it as a tree. The trunk is finding Ciri, but on the way to the top of the tree, branches appear. You can follow them and sit on them for a while. If you want, you can keep extending on that same branch to the smaller branches. The Witcher is not only about Ciri, it's a complete story with various characters and experiences that sprout out from the main objective. This probably seems pretty common in any story, especially in role-playing games, but The Witcher does it seamlessly. I feel like everything in the game belongs. There's no forcing of characters into the story, no moment where immersion can break. It just works. So Triss is now one of the many branches of this game. It seems like you don't have to do more quests with Triss, but you kind of want to. But first, I took Triss's advice and went to see the Oniromancer, who was occupied with a godling. Godlings are becoming my favorite non-human creature in the game. They're playful and harmless, and are one of the only few purely good creatures left in the Witcher world. Actually, I was curious about the two different dialogue options you get with Rudolph the Jonkier. My first choice was obviously to lie and say the place was occupied by a demon and he should consider his purchase wasted. But I went back to the last save to see what would happen if I was an asshole instead and told him about the Godling. This time, it didn't matter which one you actually selected. I know most of the dialogue options do make a difference, but I was a bit sad to learn that some of them probably do nothing, even if you think they should. Speaking of dialogue options, I'm glad that they added extra options during the chat with the Oniromancer. In order for the fancy dream lady's visions to work, she needed strong memories about Ciri from Geralt. The cool thing is, once you give her one memory, she asks if Geralt would like to share more. I took this opportunity to listen to every memory.
Olivia, the second war with Nilfgaard had just ended. There was still tension in the air. For gods know what reason, race riots erupted in the town. I tried to do something, but couldn't stop a riled crowd. A boy with a pitchfork. He ran it right through my gut. Yennefer lay dying as well. Ciri had us carried
You'll need
onto
a
a boat.
top-notch team to win this one.
We sailed to a place where apple trees bloom eternal.
I wish so badly to reunite them. It's weird to grow admiration for a character you've never even really met. That is the power of storytelling, and right now I am hooked. If there was a moment where I'd consider it impossible to quit before finishing the game, it would be this
King
one.
of Thieves. X-Men and team up to want to win this one.
30 seconds before you attack. Get ready.
I hope you rested up on your honeymoon, Remy, because now it's time for business.
Rest? Maybe not. But I sure am feeling relaxed and refreshed.
Then go ahead and
There's something attractive and endearing about a fantasy world. Obviously, us gamers are no strangers to these make-believe places, but hearing Priscilla's angelically smooth voice echo inside of the Kingfisher Inn is the pinnacle of fantasy. In a world full of terrible monsters and even more terrible men, this small pub in the heart of Novigrad acts as a place to forget about the horrors that lay outside the warm, candlelit walls. It seems in environments like this that make me almost jealous of the people who get to live inside of this game. I mean, I would never actually wish to live in such a hostile world and time, but you can't deny there is a certain charm to the idea of it. I think that's a sign of a well-made fantasy world, when there is that strange longing to be a part of it. I have a few on my list, including Avatar: The Last Airbender and the Harry Potter universe. I would definitely argue now that the Witcher experience is far richer and deep than those two worlds. I hope there are other games like The Witcher out there that I haven't played yet, but this feeling, this cozy, adventurous, fuzzy feeling I have playing The Witcher 3 right now gives me nothing but joy. If you're somehow watching this video and you haven't played the game yet, stop watching immediately and go experience this for yourself. I would have loved to stay here longer, but since we're living as Geralt, the Witcher, we can't spend it all day in the Kingfisher Inn. I gotta get back to business, starting with meeting Dijkstra and his pet troll named Bart. Dijkstra is someone we meet while looking for Whoreson Jr. Whoreson Jr. is someone we're looking for because he might know where Dandelion is. And Dandelion is our latest lead for finding Ciri. The Witcher does a great job of setting you down the rabbit hole, and that hole went one step deeper when, in order to find Whoreson Jr., I have to go find Caleb Mengi. To do that, I had to pretend to sell out Triss, and when it came down to it, I couldn't do it, and I messed something up because I had to kill every last witch hunter, including Caleb Mengen. It feels like the game is testing us a little. We're supposed to be with Yennefer, but Triss is here making that difficult. So I decided to help her out with another favor, this time accompanying her to a party where she needed to meet with her Vegelbud family. I know Triss is doing this to elicit a donation from the Vegelbuds so she can forward her plan to escape Novigrad with the other mages, but this quest felt a bit weird. Even more so, the quest is called A Matter of Life. Regardless, it was fun to be at the party, especially the part where Triss gets drunk and eventually her Triss at the fountain. Now, this game does a great job at making you feel anxiety about the time decisions you make sometimes. The game is so intricate that it feels possible that Yennefer will now find out about this case, and I probably just ruined my chances for her. Well, Triss does seem to bring out a softer side of Geralt without forcing it out, and we're clearly in too deep at this point. I wrapped up things at the party, ended up back to fighting Corsino Jr., but was yet again stopped in my tracks. This game is unbelievably beautiful. Even crazier that everything you see is a real place, somewhere you can go and discover. I was going to question if I was the only one who does this, stop and appreciate the surroundings, but I know I can't be alone in taking the scenic route. Eventually, I was able to get back on track and locate Whoreson Jr.'s place in Oxenford. I was in shock at how disturbing his residence was. I'm not even sure I can show everything I saw here on YouTube. Like, it was genuinely fucked up. I feel Geralt is what any of us would have done if we met this sick bastard in real life.
What the sandwich fuck is this?
Geralt isn't one who projects his anger or gives threat. He normally calmly and quietly shows his strength, but this line, it gave me shivers.
I feel like one more line. Then I'd do something I would later regret.
Whoreson Jr., bloody and scarred, finally told us what he knew about Ciri and Merlin. But as the quest to find Ciri progresses, I can't help but feel like she's only getting farther away. It's one step forward, two steps back. I'm beginning to question if Ciri is even still alive or even real. Like, this somehow feels like a bad dream, and we'll get to the end and everything that has occurred will have been for nothing. Oh, and you're probably wondering why I haven't shown much footage of me playing Gwent. Well, I did try it out in the very beginning of the game in White Orchard Inn, but didn't know how to play it, and I got a bit discouraged from that. I've basically avoided every opportunity to play since then. I know that's going to upset some of you, but I think I've decided to do another playthrough and go in as Geralt the Gwent master of Rivia, and focus solely on the card game. Besides, I have more important things to tend to, like getting Triss and the other mages out of Novigrad. I was kind of sad during this part. Novigrad wouldn't be the same without Triss and the other sorceresses. It's bittersweet to have to say goodbye. And it's clear to me now that Geralt and Triss are a good couple, so I did everything I could to let her know that. I didn't really expect the option to express love to Triss, and curse the developers for making this a time-based decision, but I had to make a choice.
I love you.
Miss Marigold, we're casting off.
Damn, even for a Witcher, it is still brutal to not hear I love you back. As much of an asshole Dijkstra is, he was a real bro for trying to help Geralt feel better by sharing his own story of rejection.
Pinstripes haven't slowed you down enough.
No.
The moon haunts you.
To my surprise, I come back. Hilariously, the developers threw in one final dialogue option where you can mess things up. Good thing women are changeable. That's amazing. I was too scared to test what would happen, so I just said thank you. I have a theory that Geralt, amongst all the other Witcher abilities, has one additional ability. Irresistibility. I can't tell you the amount of times Geralt has been openly flirted with, and I can tell you it's not his personality or choice of words that swoon these women. Well, dropping the L-bomb was a pretty large show of faith, so Triss took us to the top of a lighthouse, and after romancing about the future, Triss and Geralt got after it. I think they make a good couple. Triss is kind and thoughtful. Geralt is rough and independent. Though on the contrary, you could say those characteristics could be swapped and it still would be true. I thought it was funny that they included the two sailors on a boat, idling not too far from the lighthouse where Geralt and Triss are making love.
Look, they're signaling us. It's a message. Keep your eyes shut.
In typical Dijkstra fashion, he was creepily waiting below the lighthouse. Who knew how long he was there? Dijkstra shared his ridiculous plan to assassinate Radovid, the Redanian king. I have to admit that Dijkstra is a master of persuasion. Geralt is openly opposed to the idea. Witchers don't normally concern themselves with politics, yet Dijkstra perseveres.
Judge, jury,
This world's hotter still. Fires burn in every city. For majors, great and small. Your female friends included. For non-humans. For witches too. Is that the North you espouse? The North you're prepared to live in?
Geralt was undecided, but me personally, I was totally down. I feel Novigrad and the North in general would be better off without Radovid. I'm not a fan of the Nilfgaard either, but maybe with Radovid dead, someone more morally sound could defend the North. With tensions rising in Novigrad, I wanted to continue the search for Ciri before things got too complicated. We have yet to find many leads since being here, but finding Dudu seems to be the only way forward at this point. I normally find quests like the play to be rather boring and unnecessary, and it was. This game probably has thousands of hours of content, so if a few minutes here and there don't tickle my fancy, that's no big deal. I know the play's purpose was a hidden message behind it to let Dudu know Geralt was looking for him, but maybe it could have been done in some other way. I won't judge if this was somehow your favorite part of the game. It did work. Dudu revealed himself and was able to help fill in the missing details on Dandelion's whereabouts. I didn't know it at the time, but the search for Ciri in Novigrad was coming to a close. After a number of quests, we find Dandelion and help free him, where he ultimately tells Geralt that his search for Ciri will continue in Skellige. I kind of expected to find Ciri in Novigrad, being that it's so large. I know you start in Velen, but what if you went to Skellige second instead of Novigrad? Would Ciri be in Novigrad instead if you did that? Maybe you can't do them out of order, but Ciri is still out there. I'm almost nervous. I am many more hours into the game now, and as time goes by without finding Ciri, it feels like this story will end with some sort of tragedy. Ciri will either be dead, a figment of Geralt's imagination, or something else that basically makes this whole search meaningless. I mean, I guess it wouldn't make for a bad ending. There's more to this game than just finding Ciri. Maybe the journey is the friends we made along the way. It's a meme, but I could see this whole Ciri thing being an elaborate scheme fabricated by the Wild Hunt, where she's been long gone, and the Wild Hunt seeks only to tie up loose ends with Geralt and Yennefer. Regardless of what the future will hold, I couldn't wait and decided to leave Novigrad for now and begin the search for Ciri on Skellige. I liked how different it felt to be here compared to the mainland. This place is natural, earthly, and surely has a lot of hidden secrets. The thief who woke Geralt up had a heavy Irish accent, I think, who had his pet wolf and boat in the background. I like this vibe. I like it so much that the first thing I did was turn the music up. The environment on Skellige is so captivating that I didn't even realize I was trotting on roach instead of galloping. I hopped off to grab some indigenous herbs here on Skellige, and I happened across one of my favorite sights and moments in the game thus far. Hearing the music swell as the sun illuminated the evergreen environment of my reverie. How did they make this look so green? I didn't think I would find a place prettier than Novigrad. Wow, was I wrong. I think this is one of those moments that will forever seal itself in my mind. There is something magical about Celtic and Nordic cultures. They always seem to deliver when it comes to fantasy landscapes and moving. As if the surroundings didn't scream Nordic roots enough, the first thing we attended on Skellige was a Viking funeral, and none other than Yennefer. It's only been a few hours of gameplay since our intimate moment with Triss, so this was a bit awkward. I would be impressed if the game coded different lines from Yennefer during the conversation because of the choices you made with Triss.
Stop reading my mind. Don't like secrets.
No.
You still can't convince me that Yennefer is not secretly a villain. I feel she's got that dark energy about her that feels a bit too ominous, at least to not have partaken in some kind of evil stuff at some point. Maybe the previous 2 games or books already have shown that, and my gut feeling is correct. Well, there is a good chance I would find out if Yennefer has any malicious intent, since it seems we'll be questing with her for a bit. First stop was Hinderfjall, where we met some of the locals who told the story about Morkvarg, a man and a menace to the island. He pillaged, stole, and murdered, but his infamous crime was attacking Freya's garden, a sacred place on Skellige. One cool thing about learning another language is recognizing borrowed words that English uses. When I heard the name Morkvarg, I knew we would be dealing with a werewolf. My wife is Swedish, so I've been studying for a while now, and Mork, although not the right spelling, means dark, and Varg, or pronounced Vari in Swedish, means wolf. I could be wrong about this, but they said he was turned into some kind of monster, so it only makes sense. Yep, there it is, called it, there's the werewolf. I don't know what it was about the voice actor for this Morkvarg guy, but I'm glad they chose this person because I found his lines amusing.
Gonna have to play X-Men,
Not again!
The werewolf was bound to the gardens, cursed to an immortal life,
30
forever
seconds before you attack.
unsatiated.
Get
His
ready.
pleading to be saved was convincing enough, and I found a way to lift the curse. I gotta say, questing with Yennefer is nothing like Triss. She's constantly nagging and making snarky remarks. I wonder if she's treating Geralt like this because she knows what happened with Triss. Well, one thing I said earlier is coming true. No sorceress who willingly chooses necromancy is of good people. The body we found under the garden could have some info on Ciri, and Yennefer felt evil magic was the solution. I guess it was worthwhile because we got to play as Ciri again, living out the final moments of the course. I didn't find this part of the story to be that impactful. Ciri was in Skellige, and the wild hunt appeared, chasing her down. Kind of a boring moment of the story. We already know she's being hunted. As the end of the quest unfolded, however, Ciri was about to escape the wild hunt and met up with that mage friend of hers. Strangely, it seemed that he wasn't protecting her. It was brief, but Ciri was obviously pleading to go back to save the boy who just saved her, yet the mage casted a stunning spell of some kind, and he threw the now unconscious Ciri on a small paddleboat. Whoever is helping Ciri is clearly not to be fully trusted. Also, the fact that Yennefer is a sorceress and the person actively helping Ciri is a mage, it has me questioning if those two are working together. The two of them clearly push the moral limits because Yennefer's act of necromancy in the Sacred Garden required a great deal of magical power and a big sacrifice.
What happened to the garden?
It died. Like I said, a spell that requires a great deal of energy.
You knew it would end like this, didn't you? Didn't consider it worth mentioning.
I'm just speculating here, but what if Yennefer is jealous of Triss, jealous of how much Ciri loves Geralt, and wishes to eliminate them both in the name of love? Would Yennefer go to those lengths to have Geralt alter herself? I think that would make for a dumb ending to the story, but you never know. Before we left the garden, she said we needed to talk.
Geralt, I know we should talk, but not here, all right?
All men cower at those words. And given that Yennefer can pull off a bit of necromancy, Geralt may be in some serious trouble. Yennefer can read minds. There's no way she is not aware of Triss. So I began the side quest, The Last Wish. Yennefer explains that there is a djinn, some sort of magical creature thing that is somewhere on Skellige. She claims that if she can tame the djinn, she will gain incredible power. Of course she needs incredible power for her incredibly evil plans. I probably sound like a maniac, but not knowing anything about Yennefer, other than what we've seen so far in this third game, is throwing me for a loop. I'm sure she's acting totally normal, but she needs something to We were looking for something to help us locate the djinn. Eventually, I found a seal which was key. Yennefer then teleports us to a mountaintop, and I heard the music. The same music that always plays when Geralt is about to have a romantic interaction. I got a bit confused, but the dialogue cleared things up.
So that's it. This is about my last wish?
You asked that djinn to bind us together forever. I want to ask this one to take that wish back.
Why would you want to do that?
To see what it's like without it. To see if we'll still matter to one another. Or if we'll be like two strangers.
Well, I didn't see that coming. I instantly healed up for believing Yennefer was evil. I mean, she definitely doesn't hold herself to the same morals that Geralt does, but this pretty much clears up any ulterior motive. We found the Djinn and had to defeat it. The fight mechanics were cool, but this is where I wish I played on a harder difficulty. It's just that in reality, this Djinn would be an epic fight, possibly exhausting Geralt of all of his tricks to defeat, but I only needed to take a few swings. Once weakened, Yennefer commanded it to lift the spell that bound Geralt and herself. Eagerly, I waited to see how the two of them felt about one another. We sat down, and after a bit of time, Yennefer said,
Nothing's changed.
"Oh, wow. I thought we'd see a different result, but here I am, staring at two important dialogue options. What am I supposed to do? This is the first time Yennefer seems like she truly likes Geralt, and this quest helped me see her in a slightly different light than before. But I already told Triss I love her, and there's no way I can betray her like that."
I love you, Yen.
What? She was being sweet. Listen, I've seen stranger things in The Witcher than loving two women at the same time. I mean, just look at this romantic setting. Any of you would have done the same thing. You never know what day will be your last in this world, so it's best to keep both doors open. Did anyone else get as confused as I did at this point of the main story? Uma, the ugliest man alive, is the key to finding Ciri. Did I skip over something? One moment we see Ciri unwillingly being put on a boat with the now presumed evil mage dude, and then in the same cutscene, but sometime later, the ugly thing shows itself to Skjall. I swear there is some missing context, and now Geralt and Yennefer say it could even be Ciri? It's my first playthrough, so I missed something. Well, since confusion breeds curiosity, I completed a few contracts on Skellige, then sailed back to the mainland to meet the Baron. As much as I didn't want to interrupt his playing in the manure in the stables, I picked up Uma and headed to Vizima to meet with the Emperor to share with him the good news. That I guess this is a clue to Ciri.
This man is the key to finding you.
He goes on to explain the situation, which I was hoping would be an opportunity to maybe fill in some plot gaps, but it didn't. Things will make more sense if I keep advancing the story, I thought. So next up was Kaer Morhen. You know, I totally forgot other Witchers exist, and they were already at Kaer Morhen helping Yen. Their names were Lambert and Eskel. Lambert is sarcastic and unfiltered, and he made me feel worse about my choice that I just made on the mountain with Yen.
Thought you liked people with bitchy streaks.
So long as they're women.
Then you found the best of them.
He is a little sour towards Yen, but then again, he's kind of sour towards everything. When they reached the destination, the Circle of Elements, they continued their conversation. I thought it was interesting to hear how Lambert once used the Axu sign.
Yeah, useful sign, Axie. A couple of road robbers stopped me. One pointed a crossbow, and the other started rummaging through my satchel. I made the man with the crossbow shoot his friend, and then hang himself.
Didn't have to kill them.
But I could, so I did. 2 whole cents less in the world. Big deal.
Tell me, you've always been such a cynical bastard.
I think Witchers like Lambert are the reason why so much of the population detests them. I think this indirectly shows that Geralt is not like the other Witchers. He clearly acts in a different, more respectable manner. The conversation continues, with Lambert expressing that he had no choice in becoming a Witcher and wished he had a different fate.
One day our prayers were almost answered. Dad lost his way coming home from the tavern, walked smack into a nest of neckers. But some Witcher saved him. Know what he wanted in return? Give me the first thing you see when you get home. My life.
60 seconds left.
For the life of that prick? I say fuck that kind of destiny.
This got me thinking about a lot of different things. Did Geralt do this with Ciri? She was training at Kaer Morhen in the beginning, yet she's not actually Geralt's daughter. And also, do Witchers have a choice in becoming a Witcher? I also remember some dialogue somewhere in the beginning of my playthrough where someone said Witchers hate children. Is that true then too? This is where I know I would have been better off starting from the first game, or at least reading books or something, but I guess I have something to do after I finished up from Lambert, and next we were to meet Eskel, the other Witcher at Kaer Morhen who needed help. The first interaction was him and Geralt nerding it out over the steps of hunting a forktail.
As the forktail faced themselves, found a stake in the soil, bind a goat to it, and hide ye in near to shrubbery post haste.
Eskel and Geralt have much more respect for one another, which makes sense given Eskel is far more reserved and traditional than Lambert. I thought it was funny that even with Eskel's more laid-back, non-confrontational personality, he still had to show his obvious distaste towards Yen.
I'm a simple witcher, boy. Don't fight dragons, don't fraternize with clones, don't sleep with sorceresses.
I get it. Since Yennefer arrived at Kaer Morhen, she's done nothing but boss everyone around and shows no respect to the witches in their home. Not even to Geralt. But then again, she's never been nice to Geralt. I get that she's stressed, but Triss would not act this way. All of these little tasks that I've done with Eskel and Lambert were to help Yennefer do some sort of magical projection in order to talk to a sage who could help understand the curse that was placed on Uma. I did not fully understand this part, but Vesemir also had a plan to lift the curse. He left Una to someplace in the forest and left the four of us alone, waiting. Out of all the decisions I have made so far in my playthrough, none will be as important as the one I'm about to make. With Daddy Vesemir gone for the night with Uma, the kids are here to do whatever the hell they want. We could do some spring cleaning, or we could spend the entire night drinking. Well, Yennefer wasn't down to do either. She said we had to talk.
All right, what did I do this time?
Can't keep this
No,
cage down for
nothing.
long.
I just wanted to take you aside, without cluing the others into what we're up to.
Come on, let me heal you.
And what are we up to?
Now I see them.
Sneaking upstairs to
Now, I told Yennefer I love her, so why not? Except, the boys don't like Yennefer. And I already have a choice. I'm kind of regretting saying I love you to Yen earlier. Saying no to Yennefer now was not easy, but I did what I had to do to ensure that the boys are happy, while also being loyal to Triss.
Suddenly I have an immense desire to drink.
You know, I made the right decision. Now the boys can have some fun. Once the three of them were completely sloshed, they had no filter remaining and let Geralt know that Yen is not the one for him.
Will you ever rid of him?
Yeah, as soon as I trust her.
You brave a fire pit, whereas she plays you like a cheap fiddle. The way it's always been.
Listen to you two goddamn relationship experts.
30 seconds.
I love that the game gave us this moment, a bit of a vacation from constantly dealing with the heaviness of the endless search for Ciri. It was also a perfect opportunity to get to learn more about the two other witches, but the time passed quickly. Vesemir returned early in the morning, failing to lift the curse, so we had no choice but to do it again. Her way was to subject Uma to the trial of the I guess it's so brutal that many don't even survive this. Seeing Uma suffer is painful to watch, but I guess in the end it was successful. Uma, the ugliest man alive, is none other than Avalon. So it wasn't Ciri, but instead an elf sage who Geralt doesn't know. He mentions Ciri is on the Isle of Mists. He also says the hunt wants her to open some sort of gate. So I guess he's a good guy wanting to keep Ciri from the hunt, but then Geralt says he's not a good guy.
Just keep an eye on him. He's not afraid.
I guess we'll find out, but I will have to side with Geralt on this one. You don't cast a spell on Ciri and make her go unconscious without some form of evil intention. So with Uma's identity discovered, the new plan is to go to the Isle of Mists and find Ciri, bring her back, and I love Vesemir for step 2 of the new plan.
And we, the hunted, became the hunters. Geralt will find Ciri and bring her here. You will follow. They'll expect to catch us by surprise, and then be sorely disappointed.
This whole thing is about to break open. Geralt will leave to recruit some allies and bring them to Kaer Morhen, where they'll launch a surprise attack on the Wild Hunt. This is reminding me of the end of Game of Thrones, where everyone is to come together to fight the White Walkers. We even share the same icy, evil, otherworldly vibe the Wild Hunt has, but I started to feel sick almost. The story is showing signs of the end.
Boys and I will consider how we should greet uninvited guests.
All right. I was on my way.
Good luck, Wolf, and give Cirilla our love.
Come back quickly, Geralt.
So close. This is your big
All of Geralt's past friends and acquaintances know how important Ciri is to Geralt, and the quest I'm on now is to gather as many of those friends as possible and ask them to risk their lives to help protect Ciri. The story is diverging from its normal playloop. Geralt, being a witcher who acts alone, hunts alone, travels and exists alone, is now dependent on others. It is because of this expected battle at Kaer Morhen that I feel the main story is nearing its close. I'm having a difficult time coping with that reality. The urge to continue the main story is strong, but at the same time, I know that if I hurry myself and focus only on the main quest line, I might miss out on some other aspects of